Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to start filling up some of these requests that I get, and there's flowers I want to paint. I want to paint irises with you, so that one's going to be coming up. Carnations, and one of the things I have is a question for tulips, painting different tulips. Now, there's all kinds of tulips that are out there, and I brought in this one. This is a Abraham Mignon study that I did a few years ago. And the lesson is free on the channel. Matter of fact, if you go over to the JansenArtStudio.com, click the free videos and go down, you'll see the full lesson. And then there's downloads of the patterns, written instructions, photos, step photos. So if you ever want to tackle something like that, it's there. All the information is there. It's all free. You can use that. And so, it's fun. But I love these types of tulips. These are the Dutch Masters tulips. And this Mignon, Abraham Mignon, Jan Daivd Stihiem, and of course Van Hyacinth and Van Hyacinth Mignon are some of my favorite. Mignon's my favorite, but Van Hyacinth, they all painted these magnificent tulips. And then you have everything that I painted for years, from folk art tulips to fun little styles. Matter of fact, in one class I did a board that was 9 different styles, from Dutch, Ossendelft to the more of the masters styles of tulips here, because there's a lot of different things when you say tulips. But today I'm going to do Alla Prima with you. So I have a board here, and this is 18 inches this way, 11 inches this way. You can use an 18 by 12 because you can get canvases, that kind of stuff for it. But this is the MDF board. Now the MDF board is a little different than the tempered masonite. This is a sheet of MDF board. And why do I use these? I don't use it too much bigger than these types of sizes. 18 by 14 is about as large as I do, 1/8 inch thick. So you can see here, it's quite thin. It's a beautiful board to work with because it's just really smooth, and so all your brush calligraphy shows up on it really nice. Okay, so that's one reason why I like it. If I'm using a canvas, you have to fill up the weave because you don't want that weave to interfere with some of your strokes. Now, there are some techniques that I use the canvas weave to help me get a broken edge. But on these types of paintings, I don't. I like a smooth surface of the board. And I buy this at my local home store, and I get a 4x8 sheet of this for $8, and then I just run it through my table saw. And I know a lot of you can't do that, but you can go on Amazon and all that kind of stuff and get the hardboard. It works just as well. It's a little harder than the MDF, and it's fantastic. Masonite, tempered masonite works as well. All those links, again, over on the Jansen Art Studio, okay? Just hit the free videos, then there'll be a new menu that opens up supplies, and you got it, okay? So go over and take a look at that. But so I have this 18 by 11, and I want to, the last one we did a wildflowers with a thrust line moving this way. So now we'll do one kind of going the other way here. And I always like Catherine Klein, how she always put her, she was a 19th century painter, and how she put it, and she did a lot of cards and stuff, and she did a lot of just small vignettes of flowers and stuff. And I always like how she puts her stuff together and everything. But and she would just do a couple of flowers together. Now, what I also did was go out on the internet. You can find these. These are what the Dutch masters did all the time. Matter of fact, these were Van Hyacinth's. He's a 17th century Dutch master painter of tulips. And of course, this is the big Parrot Tulip. And I'll do some of these today with you here. Maybe not quite as detailed, and Van Hyacinth is really known for coming in here and detailing and stuff. Mignon as well, and there's a tremendous amount of detail on those tulips that I put in. But I want to do it more alla prima. I want to do more representation, which is very popular today as representational art, which means that is definitely recognized on it, but I want to give some lost and found edges to it. Blur it out a little bit, make it more contemporary for you, because you have some of those to watch that I did it more of the traditional way, and you can watch those videos for that. And so I will be throwing paint around a little bit more casual, okay, and see if we can get this to a real nice look today that for some of you that are the selling artists, you know, that might give you an idea for some things to sell. This is my standard palette. Matter of fact, I started calling it with my daughter last time. My YouTube palette, it's the same colors I use on YouTube, same 10 colors always. And so this is the Hansa Yellow, Darya Light Yellow, Yellow Oxide, Naphtha Red Light, Burnt Sienna, Phthalo Blue, Pine Green, Quinacridone Violet, Red Violet, White. This is the Daivd Open Medium that I will use today as well, because we're going to paint Alla Prima. This, you know, we'll try to get it done in an hour, hour and a half here. It depends on how much detail. I have absolutely no clue as I'm going, because I've never done a casual Alla Prima tulip before like this. I've always done them really structured, so we're going to have a bit of fun, and you're going to see me go through a creative process. We'll talk about it as we go. It might be a lot of fun. I also have a little cap of extender medium out here for my thin painting parts of it. Okay, all right, so let's get going. Okay, so I'm going to use, now normally when I paint parrot tulips and stuff, I use my filberts. They're the brushes that have the slightly rounded head to it. When I do a lot of casual painting, I do like the flats because they're not as precise to it, so I can roll and use the corners really well. And I do use the corners and stuff on this filbert. So I brought some out just in case, because I haven't painted these before. I don't know. We're going to try it, okay? So I brought them out just in case, and we'll see if we use them. I'm going to take a little, one of the colors that I do like to sketch with, and I have my pencil. This is my normal sketching pencil that I use, but I'm going to sketch and paint today with you, and I'm just going to use burnt sienna. It's one of my favorite things. I'm going to sketch it on, and then we're going to work the background. We're going to put on our ideas here first, okay? So, following along, we want to put on, and I just did it with a little extender here to loosen myself up a little bit. I don't want to come on the edge because I want to leave some negative space, and I might put something here like a ghost tulip or a ghost line here. We're going to go contemporary here, so I don't know. So I'm going to move over, and I don't want to put this tulip, this first one here, right in the center. I want to put it, so here's center of the board. I want to put it right over in here somewhere, and so I want to come in first with an oval. Now we'll put in the thrust line of the stem out like this, and I do like on Van Hyacinth's one here where he shows the stem coming into the tulip, and so it comes further in, and so you leave a little bit back behind the tulip here. Now, Van Hyacinth, with a lot of the Van Hyacinth, he does a more pointed type of petals, and I'm going to round and oval these just a little bit more here. Now, what's going to be important is you're going to set up, so here's going to be where the tulip line comes in. You're going to set up a center vein line. The center vein line, when you draw a tulip, that's going to give it its flow. And if you're painting these, which are actually created by a virus, and I think all of us, because of 2020, have had enough of a virus, but I'm sorry, I'm going to introduce a little bit today to you. But they are actually created by a virus. But you can see, like, you put in the center vein line, then everything is going to flow down to the center through that center vein line. Now, this is the one thing that they're learning to paint parrot tulips are absolutely, it's a wonderful thing to teach you flow and stuff of your strokes. Now, what the Dutch did, like Mignon and all of them, they would bend their petals depending on where you wanted to look. So see here, this petal has a lot of power pointing out this way, but this is a main part of the petal that's dropping the weight of the tulip down, and just a little. See, this petal here is not just drawn with saying this petal. Everything the Dutch did in their design was done with a purpose. This petal is smaller, so it has less power pulling you back this way. So the power of the design is going this way, but you have a small one that's going like this that pulls you back here. This one pulls you down, and so the Dutch, in a lot of things, they would tell the story. So here is this one with Mignon coming up, and he wants to take your eye out here, but a main important powerful petal right there is pulling back down towards that rose, which is, it just subtly says, go look at the rose. And that's what the Dutch did. It was just, they were fantastic masters at it. So I'm going to put in another petal here, maybe come in like this, and maybe let's just fold this one over a little and bring it right back in like this. I don't want to have too much power coming up this way. So my center vein line, I'll put it right in here like this and drop it down. That'll be the flow line of the tulip that'll go, or that petal that'll go that way. And you can put in other little smaller back petals. You know, there's all different kinds of ways. You can go out there and just put in Dutch parrot tulips and see all different kinds of ways that they do, you know, do the tulips. Let's drop one out here like this. We won't make it quite as powerful going down. And we'll drop that center vein line out like that here. Now, do we want to do anything more back through here? I'm not sure. We were not sure yet, so let's just leave that kind of simplistic, and we can take a look at that, you know, a little bit later. But let's drop in another one that's going to reach out maybe a little further and come down this way. And maybe this one, since we don't, I want to keep that a little closer, maybe a little closer together. Maybe we'll close this one down a little bit here more so that it doesn't have the power. So this one will be the statement tulip for what we're going to be painting here. And this other one here, let's just get rid of this and overlap that line. See, I sketch with a little bit of extender so I can erase the line there too. Sometimes when I sketch and I do this, like I start to visualize shadows, and I'll go ahead and add this in and just blur it out with my finger like this, so I can already start to add where I might see light and shadow when I do sketching like this with burnt sienna. And it's easy to change. And if you want to take something off, take off a line, even though a line is like this up here is almost dry, you know, your eraser is just a little bit of water on your paper towel, and you can take it right off easy. So, you know, you think, oh, you know, sketching with your brush, you know, especially those of you that write me all the time and you want to get more casual, start using your brush. Start doing a lot of what we call brush sketching. And I used to do entire seminars on brush sketching, because that brush sketching just loosens up your brush. You're using your brush in a different vein of creativity. And you're now using it as a pencil in a sketch. And we all know that pencil artists and sketch artists, I mean, that is like a separate, beautiful art form from painting. But they're intertwined with each other. And so if you start to learn to do some brush sketching, it's going to give you more confidence and more control in your brush and less fear of that brush, okay? So it's a good thing to, every once in a while, put down the pencil and start sketching with your brush, okay? And let's just drop a petal out down this way just a bit here like that. And this would be an area that you might consider pushing another petal back up to help this one support that one that's right there. So, and there's all kinds of ways. And then we'll sketch in a few maybe right out there. And this is what I could use to stop it, to get the big, huge tulip leaves that will encompass that stem. So that's not too great out there, but I have an idea. So just avoid that one. That one is not so greatly sketched, but that's okay. We'll push this out here, and we'll drop one out here like that. And let's just drop a few more little things out there like that. I like that. Now, see, what I like about contemporary paints. I'm going to put that brush down. I'm going to grab that was just a little number 4 flat that I just did a lot of that sketching in. Now, what I really like about contemporary is I get to play with my colors a little bit. So I'm going to take which I love, you know, that phthalo blue and white here. I'm going to add some extender medium to it. And I know I'm off camera just a little bit. Sorry, but I want to get as close as this as possible on the camera and then show you. So I'm just mixing this up. But play some of that, you know, play that. I want to play a subtle vertical line of color here that is very contemporary here. Let's play a subtle, we'll push some of this out and around here, but so a subtle vertical line that kind of closes off. I want to leave some negative space. You know, in today's contemporary looks, negative space is so important, and you know, to your painting. And so I like to leave some of that through. We'll just grab just little bits of that color kind of push that through here like this. And you play and you try, you know, don't ever be afraid to try something. It's only paint. I mean, you have an eraser. So if you're putting that on and you don't like it, you know, erase it, do something different with it. Let's put a little violet into that. Get that a little light violet, because I love that tone. And this is my painting, so I can put some of that in there. Right? I'll just skip that around a bit here. And I'll probably fill up more stuff. Let's like the greens, okay? So let's get some of our greens right over here. Maybe a nice warm yellow green here. The pine green and the yellow oxide here. And we'll just lightly push in some of this color, especially while that blue is kind of wet, so I get a little bit of mixing up into there. But I want to have this go out into lost edges and stuff like that here. So I want to do that, and we'll pull some of this. See, I don't want to be perfect with any of this right now. I just want to pull some color, you know, block in some color, because I can take out, you know, we can use our background and take out anything at any time, and maybe mix up and pull. Matter of fact, we might just pull a nice horizontal of that green coming out this way. Because, see, like the horizontal like this is an impressionist style here of the, see, I like that, boom. This breaks that, so that little bit of mark right here breaks the length of that, see? And I can change your eye direction just by breaking it right up through here like that, or breaking that edge. So I break the edge and it doesn't have as much power. But that's pulling you this way a little bit, which is what I like. And we might just do some light coloring right down in through there like that. So this is all going to come out and go this way. Very different so far, huh? So far, it's okay. So there's a few things, but you know, that's what's going to happen. And you always say to yourself, it's only paint. It's a little bit of paint. I can change it. I can change it. Let's just set that brush down. Let's go to something that we can start some of our basing in, working some of our colors. Now, this is where I start to paint the tulip. I'm going to start to use my medium whites. My open medium. So I'm going to add some open medium to this. I'm going to grab some of my blues, my greens, everything that I have. I'll neutralize that with a little bit of red here. This will give me nice, beautiful gray colors here all together. It makes a nice gray, okay? And let's just drop in some of this gray here into our tulip. Be very relaxed about it. As a matter of fact, I know where that vein line is. I'm not going to follow it too much yet. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. But I'm just going to lightly push in some of the gray. And let's push some in here. Now, we could have a yellowy streaked tulip and a red one, or we could have both the whites. I'm going to do whites today, but you could change colors. There's all different kinds of ways to do this and change colors, you know, with your tulip. Now, something I want you to remember about good art is if you use that gray, you know, you can just touch it in a few areas of that tone. And that's what a good impressionist will do that. I want to have a little bit of that blue right up and through here, so I get a bit more right where this is going to be an important area when it's all done, where that stem comes in and everything. That's going to be kind of an important area. Matter of fact, let's just emphasize that stem, a little burnt sienna, a little bit of green. Let's emphasize that a little bit more right now, because that's our main thrust line of our design, that guy right there. And I want to make sure that that stays pronounced here. Let's grab it right into here, right out through here. Boom, right like that. And see, don't worry about it blurring out. Don't worry. I used to always worry, oh, that's a little dark, or that's a little blurry, or it's not perfect. Boy, you don't want that. It is more than anything else, it's the movement of your brush, and it's the power of your brush. And if you start being timid with it, it shows up in your painting and it'll look a little off. And, you know, like I've told you so many times, I watched a master once that said it's far better to take a powerful stroke that's incorrect than taking your time and making it perfect to make one correct, because that loses the casual nature of the painting, okay? And sometimes we get oh, I got to get in there and get that absolutely perfect, and that slows you down, and then that makes it stiff. And then you write me, how do I get more casual? And I was just like, lower your standards. It doesn't have to be that perfect, you know, to get that color in there. So yeah, it's just one way. Let's take some of this nice coloring. That's beautiful coloring. Let's add that. And this is what I want you guys to start doing more of. You know, when you move that color, you know, you make a color. It's what I always say in my color theory classes. When you make a color, move the color. And that's what gives you a beautiful harmony through your painting, is that when you make a color, move a color. Remember that, okay? So let's come back up, and I'm going to keep my shadows a little thin. So I'll use, when I'm going to do shadowing, I'm going to use some extender. When I do the powerful painting of the lights stuff, I will use the open medium. So I'm going to push a bit of the shadow. Here's my center vein line. Let's just go in and set that again so you can see that this is going to curve this way. This one's going to curve out that way. Okay, we haven't set that on these, so let's set this one coming down this way. This one will hide part of it, so it comes right down through there like that. This one will bend up. Most of it will be hidden, and this one will come back out that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the light and the dark of the tulip before I set up any kind of stripes or anything like that. Remember, we're going to be going casual here too. So I'm going to set up the light and the dark of the tulip. And I'm going to, right up here, this burnt sienna is nice and warm. I might want to add a little bit of yellow to this. And since I'm going to set the light, I'm going to add some open medium to this, because the lights and stuff are going to be thicker in color. Not pure white. This is down about a 9, so it'll dries one down to about an 8. And so I'm just going to set some of this motion here. So when you have a center vein line, and you're doing a parrot tulip or something, it comes out this way, growing out, spanning out from that center vein line. So this one right here will come out at this angle this way here. And I'm going to start to, you can see a little bit of streaks starting. We're going to be able to develop all kinds of streaks, but you can see a little bit. So for like right here, it'll start out like this, and then it'll flow right down into the center vein line, and we'll pull down. So this sets up the flow of the tulip, and then it gets shallower up here towards the tip. And you know, the Parrot Tulip was like the master's tulip. Boy, you can paint the Parrot Tulip, you can paint anything. Getting the flow of that is so important. So this right here, since it is foreshortened just slightly, it'll come in right about in here like this, the light, and shorten up. And then we'll darken down just a bit here as we come down this way, and you'll flow that right into that line right there. So you can see how the tulip fans out like that. Now we want to hide some of that, because some of that can be distracting in a painting as well. But sometimes I'll say, okay, that one comes out from here to here, so I'll start right back down in here and I'll flow out that way. And that sets my main flow here for the tulip, see? And then I'll add a little more light, a little bit more right out here where I want that a little bit lighter. But we're just setting up some ideas for how this tulip is going to flow. Let's go a little darker down here, a little bit grayer. And I don't want to be precise about my tones. I want these tones to kind of change a bit. So I'm just being very casual with my grays and my tones, but you're seeing lots of stuff going on. Now, that's a real quick light to dark, so let's just walk the light down just a bit, and see I can curve it slightly to curve that petal a little bit more. And I use the veining here to kind of set up how I want this tulip to flow. Now, do I put another little petal back there? Yeah, I think so. I think I do. Let's just drop one right back here. That'll make it look like I know what I'm doing. And so you got to imagine you're only looking at half of it this time, so you'll see it going right to the edge of the petal that you have there, because you're only looking at half of it. So it's like the center vein line is right there, see? Okay, so here's our center vein line. And so we want to drop it in like this and flow it right into that vein line. And we'll keep this one softer, not as much. Let's go down to a shadow. Not as much. We'll flow it right into the vein line here, like this, right in the vein line. And we'll keep the veining and stuff on that one softer because we want the power of the tulip all up into this area. Does that make sense? So by using your whites here, what it does is it gives you a really good idea about how you're going to set the flow of your tulips. So everything you do out here, now you can pull out, you can pull in. If you're casual painting, you're going to do both, right? And we'll set it out. We'll flow it in like this, and it just check to make sure you've got a nice flow to your tulips. Now sometimes if I want the tulip, and let me just show you here, if I want the tulip to appear a little more round, I'll build more light out here like this into this area, because we know this is a round element, right? And so if light is coming in here and hitting the top of this, we want to build right here in the front. It's like painting an apple. You would shadow the sides and lighten the fronts here, but I still want some of that veining right in there. But I'm going to build my light just a bit more right into that area here, just like that. And that's going to help our tulip come out a little bit more round here in just a little bit. Okay, so we can just follow that, just build that up. Now, this is really wet now, and you can see it's really wet, a lot of paint. And as you're painting, especially with whites and Alla Prima, and it's very wet, the wet paint eats up white really fast. Okay, so it's something that I like to, when I feel, and it's a feeling thing, when I feel the paint is so thick onto the surface, I give it a few minutes to tack up. I'll go work on some other things. Or maybe I'll set that light. Let's just set a little more light right up into here where we want this petal to come up in front just a bit more. So I'll bring that light right up there. I can soften this, but don't worry about softening it too much. We have color to add to this. We have the reds and the streaking colors to add to these beautiful tulips here. So we can do that. Okay, let's go attack this one. Softer. So here's our vein line. So it's like a fan, right? So it's going to be a fan that's going to come out this way. I'm going to go softer, so I'm going to go thinner. I'm going to thin out my paints here, and I'm just going to quickly just pull in a little bit of that, in a suggestive veining there, but it stays very soft. Want it to stay very soft. So here's this vein line. We can put a little bit more light in it right out here, so I'll thicken up my paint just a bit. We'll pull out. This is the nice round part of it here. Let's darken that down just a bit for right in here. And put it, so I'm pulling from the center vein line out here. Think of it as like a fan kind of thing here, pulling that out that way. Okay, now if I pull this way, which I can do, that splits the tulip one way. The other way is if you want to give a lot of power to the turning petal. So now I will just like gently stroke in the direction of the tulip bending like this. And this is what I do usually on back petals, and what the masters did on back petals of tulips that they want to round over. So instead of pulling down into it this way and making a fan like a V shape here, you're starting up here and you're pulling, gently joining in to the vein line. So the thing, and I'll pull it again. So the thing is just slightly curved, see, and then that turns the petal. That turns the whole petal. You still get the feeling of it going out a little bit, but you're turning it out just a bit here. And so I'll have that choice here with, and this is why parrot tulips are so fun to paint. I'll have that choice here. Do I curve this petal this way, which I'm going to. Curve that just gently here, and then onto this one. If I want to close, see, as the parrot tulip opens up, it fans like this. If it's closing down, then it turns, it would turn in. But I'm going to open this one up just a bit here, so because I like the way that fans. So I'll pull this way, and then I'll streak to some of my shadows, softer colors here, and just streak that right into there. So that'll be a nice one coming down that way. Same thing that's over on this one. I'll streak it back down here. But notice I'm doing it quicker and softer because this is a secondary tulip to this one here. And again, I can close. If I want it to open up, I pull down in this way. If I want it to close down, I pull the streaks down this way like this, and the whole petal compresses down. Both are okay. Both ways are okay here. This just causes the petal to turn a little bit more, see? It's causing it to turn down just a little bit more rather than me pulling the opposite way, which would be out like this, which would cause the petal to flatten out. Now, where do you use that? You know, when you get really good at stroking the tulip and stuff like that, you know, here, this center vein line in that one explodes out like that because it takes your eye out this way to the other tulip and that way and that way. And Mignon was fantastic at doing that. This one closes down, compresses it down because it forces your eye to the center petal. This one also closes down this way because it's leading your eye this way. You don't want to explode out that way by making that V shape in like that, because that V shape is taking you out of the painting. Does that make sense? So you can have a gentle little V shape, but you want to control that V shape from some. You want to control anything that takes your eye out of the painting. Does that make sense? That's one reason why I'm going to soften down this one, because that is taking your eye out of the painting. Let me just show you that so it's nice and clear for everybody. Then I'll change it back. So if I don't want to take your eye out of the painting, see this one right now takes your eye out of the painting. If I didn't want to do that, then I would close it down like this, curving it down like that, and see how that follows the curvature of the tulip up that way, okay? But since this is the center powerful tulip, I want it to open up a little bit there. So I'll leave a little bit of that opening up petal right there, but I want a majority of the power of it going this way. That's why what is going to be really important on this tulip is this stroke right here. This is going to be the foundational stroke for our entire tulip right there. That right there is going to basically control the tulip, because look what happens. Your eye comes up like this, it powers down and goes to right there. There's my visual journey that I'm setting up right now into this tulip. And if I don't mess it up, and I remember that throughout this whole thing, it should work, okay? Now, sometimes we get so wrapped up into the learning of it, we forget the overall painting. And, you know, we can lose little details like that. So, and that happens. That's all part of our process of learning, right? And trying new things. Okay, so let's come down. Now, this is a big number 8 that I set that up with. And I'm going to do some veining. And it was really interesting in the veining, you know, when I studied over in the Netherlands and was over in Amsterdam where they had set up this dust master. And I noticed on one of they had recreated his painting area there. And I showed it in one of the online classes that I did. And it was from Wilhelm van Aust. He did a lot of his real detailing with scraping through the paint with a sharpened edge of an animal bone. And so I saw that and I was just like, wow, that's really cool. So I went home and visited my local butcher, got some big animal bones and took them back and dried them all out, boiled them, dried them out, took them out, sharpened them down, and I showed it in a couple of videos, and they work fantastic for putting in, rather than using a liner brush, using the detailing of that with animal bone. They use the animal bone because it's not quite so hard that would damage the surface if you start scraping too hard, you know, with it. So anyway, it was kind of interesting, kind of neat. Let's come in here with a warmer red. We'll add some of our medium to it. We'll drop right down here. We'll come in with some nice warm red here. We'll go cooler in just a little bit. And what I want to do is just set up and start to lift off as I come off here. I'm gonna paint back and forth. I'm just gonna follow along, painting back and forth here a little bit with you know, some of my warmth. But I want to do this. This is what you want to do. So we want to vary it. So I'm going to take my little brush here. This is a 4, and I want to turn it on its edge so I can get some smaller ones here too. and I head for the center vein line and lift off. Sometimes I'll lift off a little soon, sometimes I'll lift off a little late. Sometimes I'll now this is going to be a powerful stroke, so I might put up a nice warm, powerful stroke the other way here. And I'm using my paint just thick and kind of dry here, just with the medium and this way here. And you notice I get a little bit of streaking here, and that's what I want to do. I'll use, in the Fusion brush, like I show you in landscapes and everything, the Fusion brush does this. It does it really well. I'll vary the color. The tone here is a little heavier. And the hardest thing for me is, like, I'm a left brain painter. You all know that by now. And I tend to make the same type of stripe, so I want to vary that a little bit as I start to add this here. I want to vary the width, and maybe you get just a bit of a stripe here, and then you can come back and get a little bit more or a little bit thinner here, you know, a little bit differences and stuff to it. That's what I'm going to be looking for in the tulip here. Sometimes out of here, let's just drop a thicker one right down here. So sometimes they'll go thin, sometimes thick. They're all a little different here. Sometimes you see them more just out by the tips here, so they won't pull the entire length. And so you're going to want to vary some of this down on your tulip as you start to add this in here. Here's a nice big, you know, turned over one here, so we can, let's give it a little color, a nice pulling stripe down, and maybe a bit of one pulling in like this. Leave a tip of that white kind of color out there. Sometimes if I want to really get it, if I don't do it with light, I'll do it with the dark or the red where it overlaps. I've got to be able to see that overlap of that petal. So I'll go back and forth different ways. And that comes with time. You know, you don't have to practice these as much as you do the roses that we paint, but it is going to take a little bit, especially to understand that veining. And if you, like I say, if you go to Google and Google the Dutch Parrot Tulips and stuff and you look at it, just start studying the veining. That's what I did for a long time, was just learning how are they doing the veining. Because even with the veining, you can do a beautiful, like I could do a beautiful S stroke right here. This is an S stroke veining. So it gives a different flow to this petal that's right out here. And let's just put a little bit into there. Now I want to be kind of careful because I want to keep that one soft, so I blur it out a bit. But you draw the S, and then from the S you draw the C here, which is another way this way here like that. And so you can put that veining in kind of soft. And I know that some of you might have got lost on that. It's okay. But you know, it's the S, if you're making an S, that causes that petal to undulate and turn. And you'll see that in sometimes in these petals. You'll see that undulation and stuff and turning of a petal. Okay, so let's come right back up here. This one we're keeping it, we're going to keep this one just kind of soft. Let's just do a couple, like maybe just a red tip right there onto that one. And this one will go like just a red tip and a couple of smaller little just red touches here, just coming in like that. Here, just boom, see, vary it a little bit. Now we'll add deeper colors in just a moment as well. But let's just, this is just all nice warm color. I'm not changing the tone of it too much right now. Okay, so we'll give just a nice tip. We can hide that center vein line a little bit here. And let's pull in. See, this would be a great place for like a little S where it comes like that and then drops right into the main tulip petal right like that, see? And then this one will come back out this way. And let's just keep this kind of soft. A little bit of the striping there. Okay, and I forgot that one there. Why'd you guys let me forget that one? And we'll pull this out just a little bit. So the veining doesn't have to go all the way down in as well. Here, let's say, you know, you have your choice, and I might, for contrast, I might put that nice deep red in here because that'll allow me to put a nice deep red. So I control my color and my veining here where I want. This will give me a nice deep, I'll be able to put a deep red in here, contrasting really close to my light, and that will make this tulip just jump off here. Make it look exactly like you know what you're doing, and that's what we want to do. Here, okay, so put a little bit of that in there. Now, let's cool that off. Let's cool that off with a little bit of quinacridone. Okay, let's come back down through, and let's just lightly streak a little quinacridone into that. And if the paint builds up too much into your brush, then you lose control of it. And right now, and this is where I get my paper towel, my paint's built up a bit. So I'll just pull a little bit of that out, model that up, and let's just streak a bit of that right in there. See? And so sometimes I will work my brush back and forth to create some of the subtle, you notice I'm on the chisel here. I'm adding little color variations to the tulip itself here right now. So maybe a little bit of color variation there. And like I say, this is all really wet. You can see it's all really, really wet. So, and it's going to stay that way. Let's take that nice dark. Let's work in here first. Let's get that quinacridone, almost pure quinacridone right over that. But see, by having that naphtha red light first, I can get some streaky variations in there, see? And which gives a nice look to that tulip. Let's just streak out a bit here, just like that. That looks pretty good. Let's get this nice deeper. We'll leave a little bit warmer right up there by the tip, so I'll start in here and just streak. And sometimes I'll just lift it off the other side there like that. So I want to sometimes just ever so lightly blush the inside of that. Just blush the stripe. I know where the stripe is. So in other words, you know, maybe I don't want to do it to the tip. I'll start right in here and just lightly with the fusion brush, just barely touching the surface, and streak a little bit of that color right in there like that. Let's get a little bit. I'm going to round this one up just a touch more. But I can leave both of that movement on there like that. And let's just drop a bit of this stripe right in there. That's kind of nice. Here, let's, so just a bit of paint on your brush, and you can blush just lightly right into the centers there or out on the edge. I like to drop a little bit of contrast onto this side. Sometimes I'll break it. I like the little broken lines that they do. And that just adds a little bit more interest to it. So we've set up the shape here of this tulip. Now let's go for our contrast. Or let's go with our red-violet cool. Maybe a bit of green into that to really darken it down. And I'm not going to pull all the way out this time. I'm going to lift the pressure, and I'm going to follow my contour that I just set up, so I get some streaking. See the light streaking? You can go up, bring that up. See the light streaking that's in there with that? That's a light touch of the brush, and following my contour here. So I'll follow that contour, that vein line, and just set that up just like that, and set that nice dark in there. Thick paint. And it's not loose. See how it's not loose? It stays exactly where I put it. That's why I like the open medium when I'm doing this kind of stuff, because it gives it that sticky feel right away. Now let's just lightly come in, push down, touch, and lift right back off here again. And so we put some of that streak right into that one. Get just a tiny bit of glare with that. And then we'll streak a bit of that nice violet into the reds here. We can push a bit more of that right into this edge of this petal right there, and I can blur that as well. Just boom, see? And it just looks great right away. It looks great here. Let's put in a few darker little tips here. Just start right out here and push down. Give it that nice little tips. We don't want to lose all of our red here. Just a few edges of it. Sometimes just a quick little touch of it. Let's I'm going to go to a shadow. So when I go to a shadow, I'm going to come over here and thin it down just a bit more. Let's take some of that red violet, some of our green, so it's a little more toned. And let's drop a bit of that right down into here, following the contour. Take that in and out of this tulip right here like that, following that contour, see? Okay. And let's take some of that shadow right up over here too. So it'll help us really set a light and dark side. Follow your contours. Follow the contour and just set it up, and I'll blur it there. Sometimes I just blur that out, but it sets up a real nice pretty little contour there of shadow. So when I go shadow, I go a little thinner in my shadows. I like that. That's from my old oil days. I used to always do that. And it's when I paint Alla Prima, I usually like to do that. Thin in the shadows and thicker into the not every artist does that, and I don't do it like 100% all the time, but it is something that I do keep in my little toolbox, my little mind here. Let's put a little light, a little tip of these, this dark right out here. And we have on that folded petal there, right over that one. Okay, now I'm not going to clean my brush. I don't clean my brush with water or anything during Alla Prima painting. I'm just going to dirty it up here. And I'm going to take some of my whites. I'm going to warm this up a bit with some yellow. I'm going to pinch wipe my brush, pick up some more heavy lights here. And I'm going to restate some of the areas of the tulip that I want to have a little more power. So I want this one here. Boom. And I want to just drag over some of that shadow. But I want to build. Remember I said this is my main part of my tulip here. So I want to build a little more light, just lightly touching the brush. Lightly touching the brush. So I leave those streaks. See those streaks that come out? And sometimes let them stop just like that, because that just gives wonderful movement to the tulip here. Let's use just a little bit of paint here because I don't want to destroy all the shadow. And just lightly come off of that center line there. Lightly come off of this one. Here, let's add just a little bit of light turning edge in here that breaks up that line. This is all art, this is all your own artistic way. Different artists have different ways of stroking the tulips and stuff. And you'll find your way. When I first started doing this, it's like, how do you know to do that? And it comes with you. It comes with time. It comes with, you got to learn how to drive the tulip and drive the Parrot Tulip to do different things. Okay, the flow of the petals. But if you can paint a Parrot Tulip and flow the petals, you can paint any kind of tulip. Okay? They're all going to flow. But the nice thing about studying the Parrot Tulip is it gives you a sense of direction on how to paint your other tulips. See, what's the best way to paint some of them? Because the Parrot Tulip does it. Let's put a little bit of light right out there. Right on that edge there like that. Okay. And I do want to make this a little bit more Alla Prima, so I want to get a little more casual. Let's get a nice light here right up against that right there. We'll streak that back down right there. See, that would be a good place. I like the blue that's there to really hit a nice blue that you could do later on, or a darker green or something like that. We'll push a little bit, but I won't go over to that edge over there because I want your eye to stay up in here. Matter of fact, let's just flow that red right down into that. That'll look okay. Okay. So, and you can flow shadow. You can come back over here to your shadows and flow that shadow a little bit here to take off some of that light. So you could start right out here like this and reflow your shadow back out a bit just to take out a little bit of that light, so that you can see a better, better stripe or a better flow. You don't want to get your tulips too light. That's the thing. Don't get them too light here. So we'll push that in there. Let's go back to our shadow. Greens and reds, a little thin, so that the shadow doesn't have as much power as the light, but it'll just soften it out quite easily. Let's take just a bit of our light, and right up here by the tip of this and pull down. That gives a nice feeling to that one. Now we'll go more towards a shadow right here on the edge, and maybe a shadow right in here so it doesn't have as much power, so they have that light, see? And then that pushes that one right up on top of there. Now, I can give it even more by coming back here and flowing this way. Light, 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 touch, heavier, stop. And push that shadow right up against the edge of that, right here, right up against the edge of that turning edge of that one. We'll let this all go to shadow right here so that this other petal comes up in front a lot easier there. Let's get some more violets. Let's go a little bit thin since we're heading shadows. A little thin on our brush here and push that nice deep color there. And there we go. So now we have that petal definitely coming up on top of there. And we could even, if I have light underneath and I like it, and I still want this one to come up, I can just tap a little bit of dark for contrast, and that helps just a tiny bit, just helps that petal come up on top of that, see? So, and just the opposite over here, I have more shadow. If I want this petal to come back up more, let me get rid of, you know, so I'll push a little bit. If I got too much shadow on the brush, I'll push a little extender and just wipe it. Just takes a tiny bit, doesn't take much. We'll pick up some white, some thicker whites here. And I'll take out some of that thin white, and I'll push that right up here, up onto the edge of this tulip here, or this petal right here. And that brings that petal right up there into the front. Do you see that? Okay. You know, sometimes I used to always, you know, when you've got something done and you finally got it right, it's kind of like, I did it, you know, and I used to always do that when I was learning how to stroke these petals. It's not easy, and I'm, you know, some of you may think that I'm making this look really easy, and it's not. It did take me a lot of tulips, and that's what you got to do. You got to sit down. Remember, it's a little paint, okay? You got to sit down, and you've got to practice the flowing of that veining. And like I say, print out. I used to print out all kinds of pictures, put them all up there in front of me, and just go, wow, okay, okay. And then it all keys off that center vein line, which controls the flow. It's like the vein of a leaf, okay? And it all can, think of these almost like leaf petals. Now, we're coming down here. This is in shadow, so let's thin. Let's take some of our shadowy tones. We want it kind of white, but we want it, you know, some shadow to it. And let's just pull off so it's not as light as what we're going to do there. And we'll just give the idea of some lights coming out that way on that lower one. But I want a little more contrast to this tulip because I want it to look fantastic. So I'm going to bring a little more light right in here, following my contours. And we'll pull a little bit more light. Let's just touch a bit of the shadow there just to ease off that edge just a bit. I don't want to blend because I don't want to lose my streaks. I want those streaks, but a little bit more light. See, that gives a greater light to dark right here. And we could probably flow that light out just a little bit more, like right here. Boom, 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 right in there. Flow that out just a bit. And that'll be a, see, that's a pretty looking little edge of that tulip there. Let's give just a bit of that right out here. How much you do, this is going to be part of your statement as an artist, okay? And it is, you know, how much contrast, what you put into it and all that kind of stuff. That's part of your statement, okay? And that's all up to you. And this, I might just leave that, you know, I might just leave that. And but out here, maybe a little bit more, but we don't want it, so maybe a not quite super thick paint, but we want to push on this light edge, see, curving to follow that curvature there. And let's give just a little bit of a thicker paint right in here, and then let it thin out right there. So we got a little bit, but I want to keep this kind of soft, so a little shadow look to it here. And we might even just blur that edge just a bit there. Blur more of the and I might see this edge is sitting over that one. And it's got a nice dark tip, so I can work some more light up here, but I don't want it super thick, so I'm going to take some, I'm going to thin it just a bit with some extender this time, and just lightly glaze over this here, because I don't want this tulip to dominate this one. I want that area right there, this is my plan, to overpower everything. So I'll shadow down just a bit as I come this way here. And I'll start painting this one just a little softer. So if you want to make some more ghost, basically you want to make some more ghost tulips back out over here and stuff, this is how you would start to do it. Start to thin down, take away the power of the color, and just lightly and casually streak. You don't need to do great things, because the first one there is showing the look of the tulip. Does that make sense? And so we don't want to compete too much with it. I'll put a bit more right out here, and I'm probably going to have to restate the red tips here. Pull a little bit of red down. Let's get that nice dark. Love that quinacridone. Put a little bit of the open medium there into that, and just a bit of that. Streak in here like that. So that gives a little bit of power to that petal, and the question becomes, do you want any more in through here? If I do that, let me just take a little bit of that extra color out of there. If I do that, that will enhance the line of it pulling down. So when I look at that in my composition, do I want it pulled down? Sometimes if I don't know, I'll go paint the leaves. But I think I will enhance that pulling down just a bit by increasing the light, lifting off. Lift off. Push back to soften it in. Pull out. Pull out. And now I've got that light, just a bit of that light coming back down that way. I do want to put a touch more shadow coming out here, so this just stays really soft right back out through there. And maybe to help the tulip, and you'll start to look at this and you'll know, let's pull out a bit of that light right out through here, right off that center vein line, just a bit of that coming out, so we get a nice, and then it starts to fade away. That's kind of what I want it to do in there, and it's kind of doing that. So yeah, so now let's go back to our larger number 8 here, and let's just put in some shadow interest and stuff to our leaves. And I love the leaves with the burnt sienna and the pine green here, and I'm going to keep them kind of soft right now, so I'm going to use extender, kind of thin, till I decide exactly how I want to paint them here. And I'm just going to casually paint them in and out. I don't want to use super long strokes, and I don't want to blend. I want some streaks. You want to paint them so that they have the same type of look that the tulip does. Okay, so we're gonna wrap this one right around this stem, which is kind of what they do. So I'm going to thin that out just a bit more here as I go out, and we want this to thin right out through here, maybe a little bump in the leaf there, like that. And we'll do like Catherine Klein, maybe give a nice little, I like her stuff, and I have one of her pictures right up there, kind of referencing her tulips, and she has this one little with the pulled over vein, flipped over line, which I like. I like her compositional style for everything that she does. It's quite nice. So I do kind of like that. I'm going to take a little yellow here and some green, make a nice light kind of a yellow green. And I'm just gonna roll it over a little bit here, right like that, so it encompasses that edge there. So you give a little bit of a rolled edge here. And then what I do whenever I do a rolled edge is I come back through and I'll negative paint next to it there, take some dark and some shadow, in negative paint and set it in, because it's a lot easier to set it in with the dark than it is to set it in with lights here. This is almost like a canvas here, rolling it like that. And that's kind of neat. Might be a bit much. We could blur that just a bit. Might be a bit much there, that far away from the tulip where we want it to start to soften out. But we'll drop that in. We'll drop some of this nice movement in. We just want to give some movement strokes here. And let's take some of that light, that nice light. Let's hit the light right in here of that tulip stem here. Sometimes I'll just take a bunch of it on the edge and just tap around just a bit. Okay, and then I always, because dark takes out light really easy, so I always come back with my dark to set it exactly where I want to set it, and that always works really well for me. But we were going to bring this in a little bit more up into the body of that tulip. So let's just tap a little bit more so it joins right up there. It usually gets a kind of a roundish kind of edge there, but that might be being too precise for what I want to do with this particular tulip here. It might be just a little bit too much there. Okay. Now, right into here, I feel this is a little lost, and this could soften out just a bit. So let's just soften out some of that movement here. And remember, the movement of the leaf is going to be like the movement, the flowing of the tulip as well. So we'll just streak that through like that. Okay, and let's go up here. Since we're getting up next to that, we're getting closer to the tulip. Let's bring this up a little bit closer here and a little bit darker here, right up like that. That'll be better, and we can just move that color in and out a bit, but that'll contrast that tulip, see? So, and that's what I'm always looking at when I'm looking at the colors. Let's just contrast up a bunch by that tulip. Put a little burnt sienna, a little heavier burnt sienna. That's a little heavy, so I'll put a little more green into it. A little more color too, see? And I like that, so let's do that right up here as well onto this one, on this edge, and then we'll let it start to fade away just a bit there. Gives a nice contrast. It's like, bow. Right now my daughter will be going, yeah, Dad, a little more, a little more. She loves contrast. I am completely the opposite. I don't like a lot of contrast in my painting. So this is kind of hurting my eyes a little bit, but I'm just following the technique. I'm following rules. I don't paint what I like. I paint what I think the painting needs. And if you're painting, if you're a hobby painter and you're painting for yourself, boy, go paint what you like. But a lot of times I paint what I don't like because that's what sells the best. It really does. I like stuff super soft and not too much going on, and that doesn't sell as well as the little bit more contrast in what I like. Let's just break this up a bit. Just add a little bit of movement here, and that'll stay kind of soft there, kind of like that. Down low, which might be kind of neat, let's go thin. Take some of this out here and just thin some of these greens out like this, just to bring some of this coloring in. We could just casually push out like this, just casually break that line just a bit here, and casually break this. I love strong verticals and horizontals, and I learned that from the landscape painters, and how to put some of those in. I love those kinds of looks here, and I kind of want to push that in there. A little blue or a little green. I said blue earlier. Green works in there as well to help bring that forward. And we might have to put in, let's go back to my smaller brush here. We might just set that nice light back up in there again. A nice light. Bring it a little more forward. Maybe a little bit of the streak. Not pure white. I have a little bit of pink coming out there, and that looks like I know what I'm doing. Just a bit of that there. We might put just a bit more light right out here. Here, that's all a personal choice. Now for you, it's it's how much. I do want to add one more slightly lighter, wider stroke here. Sometimes if your veining is a little narrow, the tulip feels a little weak. So you just widen out an area. Remember, it's like right in here is like the front part of an apple. You bring that nice light, and that just helps you roundness, overall roundness of your tulip, coming out here. And so you do need some. Let's just push some of that in there, just like that. Gives you a nice different kind of look to it. Now, out through here, you could add, if you wanted to, any kind of other little ghost. Maybe there's another ghost tulip out here. Let's just take all of our stuff and a big brush and just start brushing some of this stuff up over here like this. A little bit of light, and maybe we'll just establish a little bit of a ghost one right back there like that, and just color back through here, just some color, and that will, see, just like that, that'll probably be enough, it's to just push in just the idea here. And there's that train. I love the train. The train whistle. So push that in there like that, just as enough little kind of a ghost. Let's just push a bit of the light greens back through there, just like you know what you're doing. Let's just pull one right in here like this. Here, that's just kind of a pretty little bit of it there. And we'll come back up. I don't know if you hear my dogs in there yawning, whining, and you just saw the camera shake because one came running right by the camera stands. And it's time for their afternoon walk, and they want to go, so I better be finishing this up pretty quick. But so here I'll build this up. Now everything will be thin, so now I'm going to paint with just some extender and a bigger brush, not the small brush that I did before, because I just want areas of color and I want to gray it, so I'm going to have some green into some of my reds here. And so we're just going to give the impressions here. And sometimes, you see, for me, whenever I paint the impression, I like the impression, the ghost one, better than I like sometimes my other one. So I'm just going to ghost it in here. And let's bend this petal over. So I'm just going to ghost. Sometimes I think an entire painting of ghost tulips and stuff are pretty. But see, the ghost tulip will look really nice because the other ones here, So let's bend, let's come out like this and bend the petal down. Here like that. And we'll just give that nice little S stroke. Just boom, right up into that tulip there. And just set that one in. Maybe just a bit redder onto a few areas here. Into the fronts here, like that. I do like this. See, I really like the ghost tulip. I'm a soft painter, and so I really like the soft ghost stuff. And sometimes the other higher contrast stuff, which my daughter is just fascinated with, I don't always like. I'm going to bring up just, the red will go pink, so I'll add a bit of the green to this to keep it softer gray. Don't use pure white. Softer gray back here. And we'll just bring up, I'm watching just how much I can bring up. So I can bring up a little bit here through this tulip here. And just some soft areas there. And boom, just a few little bits here. And especially as it gets out there closer to that other tulip there. And then let's take a bit of and you could do more on there if you want. I don't think I'm going to do more. I think I'm going to kind of leave that. Let's just put a idea of And I want to blur this out a bit too, because we want to keep it ghost. So put that on, and I'll just blur it out just a bit here. Just like that. Just blur the edges of it so it's not a perfect line there, like that. And you can give the impression that there's a leaf or something coming off right here off of that. And, you could build up more impressionistic things there. That's all up to you. This will give you an idea. Let's just push a bit of that dark out there. I like that. Now, see, if I was going to go, pure, if I wanted to really build this up impressionistic, like I like to do, I want to take this, to a several $1,000 painting, and it can be done. I would come back in here with some blues, blue violets. I feel that I got a lot of blue on it, maybe a blue violet, and I start looking to my background to start adding a few more contrasting strokes, and you'll see beautiful Alla Prima painters, some of the best in the world, like Richard Smith and stuff, do this type of stuff and push some of those colors. So you see these colors, this is working against some of these colors here. And they do some of this afterwards. Just coming through and just touching some of these colors, pushing some of that extra little bit right in here. Like this is a little weak right here, so let's increase its power, which, increasing the paint increases its power. We'll let that fade out as it gets over to that other one there. Here, just pull that down, pull that across there, like that. Let's thin it just a bit as I come out here, and we'll push some of that right in there, right like that. And sometimes I'll just blur it all out here, and it just softens it out really nice. This is sometimes I'll take a little extender of my blue. This is a bit much right out here, so I'm just going to add soft color, take out some of the movement that I had added earlier. Just take it out just a bit. And see, it's all wet still, see? And so I can go through and manipulate that and soften some of it out here until I get the look that I want those tulips to have here. And these leaves here. And you drop that whole thing right there into a frame. Some, like this blue might look nice streaked out just a bit. And that's something that, like I said in the last wildflower, I said, and a lot of times at the end of the painting day, I don't save my palette past one day, and you can, and I show you all different kinds of ways to save that, but I don't like to do that. And what I do is I take my paints and I practice up color schemes, different things, textures, looks, and I just practice it all up and finish it up. And that's where I go, and that's where I get all my ideas. A lot of you say, where do you get your ideas? Well, at the end of my day painting, where a lot of people are setting it, that's where I sit down and I develop all these different looks. Now, why does that happen so fast? It's because inside of me, a little thing changes. Like, this is not the painting now, this is the play. And I play, and sometimes when I'm playing like that, I go, wow, that's really cool. And I see a new way of doing things, and that's what I do. So I've learned over the years that is a fantastic way for me, that works for me, to get some of this, some of these new looks and these different looks, and get them down and work this. I'm just going to put this leaf right back up on top of that there, like that. And see, it got a nice contrast, and we're heading out to some softer stuff further out, but I got a nice main tulip, and I'll drop this into a little bit of a darker frame. That's a quick one for you. Not all that quick, but that's a little bit of a quicker look for you. Painting something like this, Alla Prima, you could put down some more ghost leaves there, I should probably, I just dropped that brush in the water, so I should probably put a little extender in it. I should probably lighten this edge up just a bit more here. A little lighter yellow-green. We'll go a little thicker because we're into the highlights here. And just lighten that edge, some of that movement right here. So I get a nice little movement there to that. Here. a little bit of movement inside that vein line. Each you would have a vein line, and sometimes if I don't want to do a specific line, you could just do it with like a shadow, a nice little shadow line, right like that. And see, and I'll balance that because that's a line of power. Do you see that? That's a line that's moving it here. So sometimes I'll break that off, just soften it, push it off just a little bit and reduce its power. It's all about the line, all about that thrust lines of movement and stuff. And yeah, and there's all different kinds of ways to do it and to see that. But that'll give you guys some ideas. Let's take it just a little thin. Let's just add a few more little stem movement there, a little stem action here, out like that. And then we'll call that. That works, and your eye goes zoom right into there. Please tell me your eye goes zoom right into there. You know, if it doesn't go there, I don't want to know. Don't comment on it. I don't want to know. Okay, guys. All right. So there's a fun way to do the tulip, and like I said before, I did 9 different ways. There's all different kinds of ways. This is a nice, little bit more casual way to do a Parrot Tulip. This one is a little bit more detailed, water drops, all that kind of good stuff that the Dutch do. And that one took a heck of a lot longer than this one did. So, you know, this one I think would look really well with today's paintings. Probably, you know, I feel this is just a, you know, let me just do this. So I'll probably take just a little bit more of my thinner gray and just build up this line through the edge of the tulip here. That'll give a little more body to this one right here. Not so much that I'm going to take away from that other one. Yeah, see, that's a little better. Builds a little bit better body. See that camera shaking? They're running by my dogs want to go for their afternoon walk. So we'll just build this up just a bit more. There we go. Right out there like that. I think, yeah, that's a little bit better, I think. Here. Doesn't take away too much from that one, but pulls that line down that way. And so, you know, when you get, if you get, and this is the thing, if you get too many thin little lines and not enough color, then your tulip will feel weak. It'll feel like spider webby, okay? What you want it to feel like is an apple. So you want to build that light in there into that center, and then you can let the edges whisper out, but that center you want to build it up a little bit, especially that light, so it comes out after you, so it comes out at you round. And that's the thing with a lot of Parrot Tulips, is people don't build them up quite enough through the center, and so they lose some of their roundness. And so you want to be able to do that. Okay, alrighty, there you go. Parrot Tulips, okay? And please hit like. We would appreciate that. And comment for us. Also, I put up this morning over on our Paint It Simply channel, paintitsimply.com, a full 2-hour, 20-minute Mastering Roses composition that I paint for you, you know, drawing, sketching, talk about colors, working the whole thing through there. It's over on our Paint It Simply channel. That's our other channel that we had it activated for a while, then we took it down and we built up this one, and then we decided we get so many requests for stuff that we do, and we film a lot here in our studios. We decided, why don't we activate that for those that want to really take their roses and stuff to the next level. So we're going to have a lot of beginning lessons all the way to what we call the mastering level of the roses. So if you want to go over and watch that, it's a brand new one. We just uploaded it. And we just uploaded it onto that channel. There's 3 I've put on this last week over there that shows more open roses, more things to do. So if you want to see other things with roses, and those of you that want to continue with your rose studies, head over to our paintitsimply.com. Paintitsimply.com. Head over to our Paint It Simply channel, okay? And just put in Paint It Simply, you'll go right to the channel. And please subscribe to that one. Help us out by subscribing to that one so we can make that channel grow a little bit. And we're activating our rose modeling. Some of you don't know about rose modeling, but that was where I started. And it is a beautiful art form. And we're gonna bring in scrolls and flowers, and we're gonna do a lot of that on the rose modeling channel. Lots coming though. Okay, have fun with it. And enjoy your tulips. Try them on light backgrounds, dark backgrounds, because it'll change it, okay? All right? And I'll see you on the next one, because we have irises to paint carnations to paint, hydrangeas to paint, landscapes, seascapes, portraits. We got fun things to do, okay? And thanks very much for those of you that like and share our videos. That means a lot to us. It really, really does. We thank you for your support. Thanks. Okay, I'll see you on the next one.